Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. I was an orphan taken in by the Baker family. The older members of the Baker family wanted Michael to marry me. I agreed happily, and Michael didn't object either. But after we got married, he treated me like a stranger. Later, he started using business trips as an excuse to stay away from me for long periods. My mother-in-law blamed me for not giving the Baker family any grandchildren. She constantly made my life difficult. I spent my whole life waiting for Michael and taking care of my mother-in-law. Exhausted, I lay in the hospital bed as my husband Michael didn't even come to see me one last time. However, Sophia kindly told me that Michael was planning his wedding with her. He didn't have time to see me. Michael had said, "We'll have the wedding right after she dies. Clara, you've been Mrs. Baker for over 30 years. The kids and I have no official standing, so you should be satisfied." That's when I found out that Michael had another family. He had a lover and children. I was all alone. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the Baker house. Michael's mother was still teasing. "Clara, do you like our Michael?" "No longer," I replied. "In this life, I want to do what I truly love." The smell of the hospital disinfectant still seemed to be in the air. The pain of being sick was still fresh in my memory. In front of me was Michael's mother, who was my mother-in-law in my past life, asking, "Clara, do you like our Michael? After you graduate, how about marrying him?" In the living room were the Baker family and friends of my parents from when they were alive. The woman was so kind and gentle, warm and loving, completely unlike the difficult and cruel person I remembered. Because Michael and I were often apart, I had no chance of getting pregnant. She would find ways to make me suffer. She forced me to drink unbearably bitter medicine every day, saying it would help me get pregnant. She even brought in a statue of a fertility goddess, ordering me to kneel before it every day, chanting and praying. That wasn't even the worst of it. Her daily indirect insults were suffocating. Not to mention, Mrs. Baker demanded that I personally serve her tea, water, and give her massages. Whenever I thought about refusing, she would burst into tears, talking about the hardships of raising me an orphan. She said she raised me like her own daughter. She said that when I had nightmares as a child, she would hold me and comfort me. She said that when I was sick as a child, she took care of me without rest. This was my weakness, so I didn't resist. "Clara, don't be shy, speak up," Mrs. Baker nudged me. I came back to my senses and looked into the woman's eyes, which seemed to be urging me. If I had paid closer attention in my past life, I would have realized that this urging was to get me to marry Michael quickly so they could use my inheritance without criticism. At that time, I was just a young woman who had been spoiled since childhood. I had just lost both my parents and thought I had found family and comfort in the Baker family. How could I have thought so much? But now, after going through more than 30 years of a marriage in name only, after enduring the pain of Mrs. Baker revealing her true nature, I see everything very clearly. So I stood up and smiled. "Madam, it seems you have misunderstood. I only see Michael as a brother, and after finishing high school, I still plan to go to university." Mrs. Baker's face suddenly turned pale. Today, in front of everyone, they asked me if I liked Michael. It was supposed to confirm my marriage with him so that using the money that was legally mine wouldn't be questioned. Mrs. Baker quickly reacted. She naturally stood up and hugged me, saying to everyone, "This girl is just shy. Michael, take Clara for a walk in the garden." Michael was sitting on the sofa across from us, the young Michael, young, handsome, and a bit distant. Because Mr. Baker was a friend of my parents, Michael and I were barely childhood friends. Since we were young, I liked to follow him around and make him play with me. When we were little, our relationship was quite good. As we grew up, Michael became somewhat distant from me. In my past life, I didn't understand and thought it was just because we were getting older and needed to be careful about being too close. Yet, I didn't want to think that Michael was actually annoyed by me. I was a somewhat proud young woman with a bad temper. He, however, had to obey his parents' orders and agree with everything I said. He didn't like it, yet he couldn't get away from it. Michael was naturally annoyed. If he ignored me, so be it. But instead he married me. He married me yet let his mother make my life miserable. He married me yet was loving with Sophie outside. I hated him. I hated myself even more for being blinded by emotions, leading to such a sad life. I clenched my fist, then slowly let it go. gently pulling away from Mrs. Baker's hug. I still had a bright smile. No need. You still have to meet Sophia later. If you like someone, you should bring them home early. Among the guests, someone said, Michael has someone he likes, yet your mom is still trying to set him up. It was at this moment that I finally looked directly at Michael. His face was even paler than Mrs. Baker's. The corners of his eyes were slightly red. I was too tired to look any further. I greeted everyone there and left on my own. Leaving the living room, I went straight to the mailbox in the front yard to check the letters. I finally saw the one addressed to me. Clara. Michael's voice came from behind me. I quickly turned around and hid the letter behind my back. What kind of mood are you in today? I frowned. What's wrong? Yesterday you told me you liked me, and today you say you see me as a brother. Can you stop being so impulsive? My mom treats you like a daughter, and you embarrassed her in front of everyone. I quietly looked at him. I thought of my past life. After marriage, Mrs. Baker also embarrassed me in public. I just complained to Michael for a moment, and it made him angry. He said, Hasn't my mom been good enough to you? Can't you handle a few words? So now I returned that sentence to him. Madam treats me like a daughter, but the daughter can't say a few honest words. He was speechless. He sighed. You're acting strange. In his mind, I was naturally acting strange. After all, in my past life, after my parents passed away, I truly saw the Baker family as my own. I changed my former proud and arrogant nature. Not only did I not say harsh words to Mrs. Baker, but even with Michael, I tried hard to please him. I sneered. So what are you upset about again? Didn't you hate me following you around? So I said, I don't like you, just as you wished. After saying that, I wanted to leave. I still needed to open the letter in my hand. Michael said, I didn't. That's not important. None of that matters, Michael. Whether you love me or not, it doesn't matter. Hearing this, Michael frowned. Even being nice doesn't work, Clara. You're still so difficult to get along with. With my parents gone, I had no one to support me. Therefore, Michael's attitude towards me had changed a lot. Once afraid to speak loudly, now he told me to my face that I was difficult. Was I difficult? It's just that I didn't agree with his ideas. What he called being nice was just an attempt to keep me calm for now, ideally to trick me into getting engaged to him. In my past life, after getting engaged, he immediately used the excuse of needing money for the company's expansion to make me give him most of my money to help him. At that time, private businesses were starting to open up. There were chances to make a lot of money everywhere. With my help, Michael took over the real estate and food businesses in City C, becoming the richest man in the area. In a marriage of over 30 years, I lived like a widow. Everyone envied me for being the wife of the richest man. Yet they didn't know that without me, Clara, he, Michael, would never have reached such heights. In this life, let me be the one at the top, looking down at the Baker family's foolishness. Let them enjoy their craziness and cause their own downfall. Too tired to say more, I smiled. I am difficult to get along with, so what? If you don't like it, keep it to yourself. Returning to my room, I eagerly opened the letter. I actually had another uncle. He and my mother shared the same father but different mothers, and he now lived in the United Kingdom. I had met this uncle once. At that time, he came to our house asking for help to treat his elderly mother. My parents gave him a lot of help and even recommended a good hospital. Later, our two families sometimes kept in touch. In recent years, we had lost contact. In my past life, I didn't know that my uncle went abroad to find gold and accidentally became wealthy. He learned about my parents' death in a car accident. A year later, he found out that I was taken in by the Baker family, so he wrote a letter to contact me. The letter was sent to our old home, and then forwarded to the Baker family's mailbox. Mrs. Baker always knew there was a letter for me, but she chose to hide it and say nothing. It was only many years later that I learned Uncle had been sending me money and letters, but by then it was too late. After reading the letter, I learned that Uncle couldn't return to the country for certain reasons, so he chose to keep in touch by writing letters. The letter said this was the 10th one he had written, and its content was no different from the previous ones. It was just about his life abroad, and then comforting me, he asked if I wanted to go to the United Kingdom. At that time, the United Kingdom was very advanced. It had the best education and jobs. The letter contained 10 large denomination US dollars and a plane ticket to the United Kingdom. My nose tingled with emotion. It's great. I'm not an orphan. I still have family. The flight was from Shanghai, which was nearby, and the date was 4 days later. I pulled myself together. Next, I needed to deal with the inheritance my parents left me. The real estate would stay as it was. These locations were good and would likely become more valuable. I wanted to keep the money in separate accounts. Half would go with me abroad and half would stay in the bank. Also, I didn't really know my uncle, so I needed to be careful before contacting his family. Fortunately, the college entrance exam was over. I used visiting classmates as an excuse to go out. It was also a good way to handle things. I happened to meet a classmate at the bank, and they exclaimed happily, "We were just looking for you. Come on, class reunion." The reunion was held at the biggest karaoke place in the city. At that time, karaoke was still very popular. When I arrived, Michael was also there. Someone joked, "What, Claire didn't come with you today?" "Yeah, where's your little wife?" Michael fiddled with a lighter. "I'm so annoyed. I'm glad she's not here. I can finally have some peace. Besides, I don't like Clara." The laughter of the crowd went up and down. "Who do you like, the class beauty?" People were making a fuss and pushed Sophia towards Michael. The girl beside me looked a bit embarrassed and coughed twice. The colorful lights flashed, and only then did the crowd notice me. I walked confidently to the group and said, "What a lively scene. Carry on." Michael instinctively shielded Sophia. "Clara, what tricks are you playing now?" "Playing tricks?" I wished I could just stab the two of them to death, but now none of that had happened. If I were to say that in my past life I was miserably hurt by these two people, who would believe me? I laughed. "Michael, why didn't you tell me earlier that you hated me? You're such a coward." Clapping my hands, I said, "Fine, if I'm not welcome, I'll leave." Everyone didn't react in time. I had already opened the door and left. Michael followed closely behind. "Clara, listen to me." "Oh no, Sophia has fainted." Exclamations from classmates came from behind. Michael hurried away from me. "Clara, what I said earlier was just out of anger. I'll explain it to you later." He hadn't finished speaking when I was already rushing to leave. "Sophia," I looked on coldly, then turned and left without looking back. There would be no more chances to explain. In 3 days, I would go to the United Kingdom. From now on, I would no longer think of him, and he should not think of me either. The next day, I tidied up my room, throwing away things I didn't need. Mrs. Baker came over suddenly, asking which university I was applying to. Of course, I wouldn't tell her about studying abroad. I casually mentioned Shanghai University to avoid the topic. Mrs. Baker praised Shanghai University while looking doubtful and brought up Michael's marriage again. "You can get engaged first. It won't stop you and Michael from going to university." Before I could refuse, Mrs. Baker changed the subject, comforting me. "I've already asked Michael about it. He and that Sophia are just ordinary classmates. You're just overthinking. Still not giving up, huh?" I moved away from Mrs. Baker. "Madam, I'm really not interested in Michael." Mrs. Baker still didn't believe me and quickly assured me, "Good child. I will definitely make Michael break up with that classmate completely." These words were overheard by Michael at just the right moment. He didn't understand the situation and walked up to me quickly. The look in his eyes was full of disappointment and anger. "Young lady, do you need everyone to pay attention to you? Sophia is weak, and her family isn't well off, so I took extra care of her. Do you have to tell the whole world and even complain to my mom?" He yanked the crystal necklace in his hand as if he was angry. The crystal beads fell to the ground with a clatter and rolled away in all directions. "I originally wanted to give it to you as an apology, but now it seems unnecessary. I'll tell you clearly, there's nothing between me and Sophia. I won't stay away from her because of you either." After Michael got angry at me, he kicked open the trash can I used in my room. The trash can fell to the ground with a crash, spilling out everything inside. Dolls and small gifts rolled out one by one. Michael's eyes suddenly turned red. "These are all gifts I gave you." "Well, I don't like them anymore, so I threw them away." Saying this, I kicked away a crystal bead that rolled to my feet. Annoying things. In 2 days, I'd be on a plane to the United Kingdom. The distance from City C to Shanghai wasn't short. I had to go to Shanghai early. My passport had been prepared earlier for traveling abroad. I didn't have many belongings. Valuable jewelry and property deeds were stored in a bank safe. By chance, Mr. and Mrs. Baker were going to another city for business, so I wouldn't say goodbye to them in person. They had indeed taken care of me for many years, but it was only for the inheritance. The money sent by Uncle was kept by Mrs. Baker. It was enough for my living expenses over the years. When I was leaving with my small suitcase, I ran into Michael and Sophia in the downstairs living room. They seemed to have just returned from outside. The small suitcase in my hand caught Michael's attention. Michael's attention was caught when he asked, "Where are you going?" "Going to complain to my mom again." "Not interested," I said, gesturing for them to move aside. "I'm going to a classmate's house to play. Madam and the others all know." I wasn't lying about that. I did tell Mrs. Baker that I would be at a classmate's house for 2 days. Michael was still upset and said coldly, "Come back by yourself then, I won't pick you up." It didn't matter. Sophia, who had been quiet, suddenly leaned over, her voice sounding pitiful. "Clara, I was just kicked out by my family and have nowhere to go. Michael kindly took me in. I heard from Mrs. Baker that you were upset with Michael because of me." "I'm sorry." "No need to apologize to her," Michael said, grabbing Sophia's wrist. "If it weren't for her big mouth, my mom wouldn't have bothered you. Truly a loving couple." I found it very pointless and continued walking forward. Behind me, Sophia's weak and sad voice continued, "Michael, do you want to go comfort Clara? Don't worry about her. She has nowhere else to go. She'll come back sooner or later," Michael said confidently, with coldness and disdain. I stopped for a moment, then quickly continued walking forward. It turned out their family was mean to me because they thought I had nowhere else to go. It's okay. When we meet again, I'll let you experience what it's like to have nowhere to go. The first day Clara left, Michael didn't feel anything. The next day, he asked the servants irritably, "Has the young lady not returned yet?" The servant shook his head. The young man's handsome eyebrows furrowed deeply. Such a young lady's temper. If she likes staying outside, she might as well never come back. After speaking harshly, he questioned the servant again. "Did the young lady say which classmate's house she went to?" The servant still shook his head. Michael felt even more annoyed. It was as if a stone was pressing down on him, making it hard for him to breathe. Passing by Clara's room, he noticed something flickering by the potted plant near the door. What was he thinking? He bent down to pick it up. It was a single crystal bead. Michael was a bit dazed. Then he squatted down, wanting to see if there were any other beads. A hint of regret rose in his heart. How did he manage to break the necklace? This was clearly the graduation gift he wanted to give to Clara. Shiny things were Clara's favorites. He had always known that. Clara was quick-tempered, but she had become much quieter after losing her parents. He knew that too. Why did he have to upset her? He thought that when Clara came back, he would just apologize sincerely. However, he waited 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and still there was no sign of Clara coming home. The unease in his heart grew stronger. He started calling classmates who were close to Clara. The answers he received were all that they hadn't seen Clara. He didn't believe it. He went searching from house to house. Still, there was no trace of Clara until he opened Clara's bedroom door. The room once warmly decorated. He had no sign of the stuffed animals he had given her. Clara's clothes and shoes were all gone. The room suddenly felt much bigger. Michael searched the room quickly, trying to find any sign of Clara's life there. But he only found a piece of letter paper pressed under a book on the desk. "I have left. Mr. and Mrs. Baker, do not worry." Only a few words, yet not a single mention of Michael. After the plane landed, I didn't immediately call the number my uncle gave me. Instead, I hired a detective to look into my uncle's family. I didn't need a deep investigation, just a simple understanding of whether the family was happy and so on. I thought that no family is naturally bad. I was willing to accept a stranger as family. Fortunately, the news I received was that my uncle had a rather large farm in a certain state. He had a good reputation locally, with a simple and happy family. I was also prepared for the worst. If my uncle was not reliable, I could study in the United Kingdom myself. It was no big deal. After finishing my research and buying gifts for everyone, I contacted my uncle. When he learned that I had arrived, He immediately came to pick me up. 3 days later, I finally arrived at my uncle's farm. My uncle was more than 10 years older than my mother because he had worked hard to find gold early in his life and been exposed to the weather. He looked even older. He wasn't good with words, especially when he looked at me. He just sighed. "You really look like your mother." Then he gave me a card and told me to spend freely. He took me to ride the farm's horses and let me play with his big dog. My aunt, on the other hand, was a slightly plump white woman. She could make excellent desserts. To be honest, the desserts were delicious, but they were very rich. She was too enthusiastic. She kept making me snacks in different ways. My uncle's son was also married, and his wife was an American Chinese. Thanks to this brother and sister-in-law, I could still eat some Chinese food. My uncle's daughter was only 1 year older than me. My cousin saw my simple outfit and shook her head in surprise. "Oh my, don't let ugly clothes hide your perfect figure." Okay then, she took me to the city for a shopping spree. With her around, I quickly became part of the local young crowd. After the summer vacation, it was time to go to university. With my uncle's help, I went directly to my cousin's university. I chose to study finance for no other reason than my experiences from my past life combined with my current financial resources. It was enough for me to build a career. Life in the United Kingdom was warmer than I imagined. During holidays, I played on the farm and helped with small jobs. At school, I went to lectures and did assignments with classmates from all over the world. In my second year, after doing a lot of research, I decided to start a small import-export business to learn. I talked with my uncle. He didn't say no. Instead, he asked if I had enough money and if I wanted him to introduce me to some business people. Having someone to guide you is certainly better because it helps avoid mistakes. But for someone new like me, making a few mistakes wasn't a big deal. I was still young, with time and money, and I could afford to learn by trying. So, I and 3 other classmates started a small company. We exported clothes and food from the United Kingdom to nearby countries. A year later, in my 3rd year, the company made a small profit. However, each classmate had their own plans. Some wanted to make money and start their own business. There were also those who felt the company's profits weren't steady and decided to leave. Just like that, the company was closed. Starting the company gave me a lot of experience. If I owned the factories that made the products for import and export, I would earn more. I made new plans, did more research, and prepared to start another company before graduating. In my free time, I used the money I earned to buy my uncle a car. I bought an apartment near the school for myself and lived with my cousin in the apartment. I adopted many stray cats, sick or healthy. I took them all in. When the sunlight filled the balcony, these furry creatures would curl up into balls, sleeping at my feet. I petted one, played with another, and in a daze, I remembered my past life. I really liked cats, and after a lot of asking, I finally got Michael to buy a little Siamese. As soon as we brought it home, Mr. and Mrs. Baker were very unhappy. They said the cat would be bad for pregnant women. You can't get pregnant anyway, and you still keep this thing? Bad luck. The little Siamese didn't even know what it did wrong. It huddled in my arms, feeling sad. I had no choice but to give it to a classmate who also loved cats. I gave them money and food for the cat, and visited regularly. Thinking about this, I picked up a long-haired orange cat. It seemed like I hadn't thought about my past life, or Michael and his family for a long time. After all, I was quite happy now. No need to remember bad things. In the second semester of my 3rd year, my new company was established. It was in the dairy business, from raising cows to processing dairy products. I would improve the supply chain step by step. Finally, in the year I graduated, the whole production process was complete. Because of this, I could greatly reduce costs, whether it was business in the United Kingdom or export business. I was confident in negotiating prices. After everything settled down, I wanted to go back to my country for a visit. Uncle naturally agreed. My cousin came back with me. As soon as I landed, my partner Andrew, who had blonde hair and blue eyes, came up to me with a bouquet of roses. He was a very handsome white guy. He also spoke Chinese very well. "Clara, are you surprised?" I was speechless. "Weren't you supposed to be discussing the land deal? If you came, who will handle it?" His blue eyes flashed. I'm not as important as the company, right? Of course, don't act pitiful. My cousin covered her mouth and laughed beside me. As handsome as your bodyguard. Then she secretly gave Andrew a thumbs up. Good luck. Encouraged, Andrew confidently went over to help me with my suitcase. But before he could touch it, another tall person stood beside me, casually taking the handle and gentlemanly holding up an umbrella for us. The muscles in his forearm were strong, and I could faintly see the veins under his tan skin. The private car has been arranged. Boss Marco's voice was rather cold, but his tone was quite gentle. Looking up, I saw the man's black hair and black eyes. There was no expression on his face. He just stood in front of Andrew, as if he hadn't even noticed him. Childish, I muttered to myself as I got into the car. There had been big changes in the country. First, I went to my parents' graves to pay my respects. When I arrived, a dried white chrysanthemum was blowing in the wind in front of their tombstone. It was probably left by a friend of my parents. I moved the chrysanthemum aside and placed my own flowers. I talked to my parents about my life abroad, how my uncle took care of me, my aunt's great cooking, mostly desserts, and the funny stories of my cousin and her husband taking care of their new baby. As for me, everything was quite good. I had family to rely on, graduated as a good student, and met many like-minded friends in business. Don't worry, I take good care of myself. It was raining. Raindrops slid into my mouth salty. After we finished paying our respects, we walked out of the cemetery. Andrew held an umbrella for my cousin. Marco walked beside me. We happened to pass by a man and a woman. The man was holding a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. The woman followed him with an umbrella. But her words were somewhat harsh. Even if you come every day, you won't see Clara. I'm pregnant, can't you think about my feelings? It was a familiar yet strange female voice. I instinctively turned my head to look. Who else could this man and woman be but Michael and Sophia? My cousin Andrew, and the others looked at me when they heard my name. I shook my head, telling them not to worry. Sophia kept talking. Michael suddenly stopped, turned around, grabbed her umbrella, and threw it away. Can you just leave me alone? You're really annoying. Sophia screamed and almost fell. Seeing the two of them about to have a big argument in front of my parents' graves, I quickly asked the cemetery staff to handle it. As for why I didn't appear directly in front of Michael, it's because I returned to the country not for him. I was interested in the current real estate market. I came back to talk business, not to get involved in bad luck. Unfortunately, when visiting the old house, I ran into an elder. He was an old family friend of my parents and the Baker family. He quickly called to tell Mrs. Baker that I was back in the country. Mrs. Baker was very excited and asked me to wait for her there. You child, why didn't you tell Madam when you came back? Madam was so worried about you. Wait for me to pick you up. No, Madam, I have other things. I hung up the phone and gave it back to the elder. By the time Mrs. Baker and her son arrived, our group had already gone to a hotel in the city. In the evening, I would attend a banquet to meet with some developers from the city and discuss working together. The banquet was quite fancy. Our group was used to toasting and drinking in the United Kingdom, so we were comfortable here as well. During the banquet, I had a good conversation with several business people. This was partly because I had my own ideas about business, and partly because many of them knew my parents. I had both connections and money. The business talks went smoothly. The banquet was halfway through when there was some noise at the entrance. The host, Mr. Shao, looked unhappy and asked what happened. Mr. Baker didn't have an invitation and insisted on coming in. Mr. Shao looked at me, knowing that I had once been taken in by the Baker family. He smiled and said, "It's just a mistake by our staff. They forgot to send Mr. Baker an invitation. Please let him in." I stayed calm inside. I found it funny. What do you mean, forgot to send an invitation? It's just that they looked down on the Baker family's status. Without my financial help, the Baker family's small company would have trouble surviving because of changes in policies. The company was even close to going bankrupt. In this situation, who would still want to bother with the Baker family? I didn't stop Mr. Shao from letting people in. After all, outsiders didn't know about the problems between me and the Baker family. If it got out, they'd say I was ungrateful. That wouldn't be good. On the outside, I still kept up appearances. Michael's eyes immediately found mine. He was wearing a slightly worn suit. Because of the earlier struggle, it was a bit wrinkled. Without bothering to fix it, he walked towards me quickly. "Clara, you're finally back." The hope in his eyes was like a light turning on. His once lifeless eyes were now sparkling. I didn't move just a second before Michael got closer. 3 people stood beside me. My cousin frowned. "Who are you?" Andrew put his hands on his hips. Another one, Marco, quietly rolled up his sleeves and took off his watch. "Me. We are serious business people." "Clara," Michael's eyes suddenly turned red. "Why?" "I didn't plan to talk about the past with him. Long time no see. I still have things to do. Make yourself at home." Behind Michael, Mrs. Baker followed closely. Relying on her age, she pushed her way over. "Clara, you child. How could you just leave without a word back then? Where have you been all these years?" Blocking my way, she started to wipe her tears. I slowly moved away from her. "Madam, the letters my uncle sent back, you received them all. Why didn't you tell me? Besides, when I left, I did leave a note." Everyone present was smart. After I said these 2 sentences, everyone probably knew what had happened. It was nothing more than Mrs. Baker hiding my uncle's letters, trying to stop me from finding my relatives. Never because they liked me too much. It was because they liked the money that was legally mine too much. No need to explain, as long as you know. Mrs. Baker immediately stopped crying. She laughed awkwardly. "Clara, don't be angry. How would I know if it was a scam? By the way, after you left, Michael looked for you for a long time. You two should catch up." As she spoke, she forcibly pulled Michael to my side. Michael didn't speak. He just stared at me with red eyes. His gaze made me very uncomfortable. Frowning, Marco came over and told Michael to keep some distance from me. The boss doesn't like people getting too close. Andrew stood on the other side. "Hey, even someone as handsome as me couldn't win her over, so you better give up." Michael wasn't looking at them. He stared at me and asked, "Why are you leaving? Do you know how long I've been looking for you?" I shook my head. "I don't know, and I don't want to know." Michael's voice broke. He took a crystal necklace out of his pocket. "I fixed this that day I went to find you. It was to make up with you, Clara. I will never make the same mistake again." He spoke with such real emotion, his eyes shining with tears. Andrew looked at the crystal necklace and laughed. I said, "Can something so cheap even be given as a gift?" Michael looked deeply at me. "I will get you anything you want. I beg you, don't ignore me." I never cared about how much a gift cost in the past. The stuffed dolls that Michael casually gave me would make me happy for a long time. Happiness came from liking the person who gave the gift. Now, I didn't even like Michael enough to hate him. He was too weak, ignoring the emotions that blinded me in my past life. He wasn't worth being my enemy. I still admired his rebellious spirit. I smiled. "You think you have control over me, which is quite funny." "Clara, those were just words spoken in anger," he quickly explained. I thought, "Oh, it doesn't matter." I took a glass of champagne from the waiter and said coldly, "Does your wife know you're meeting me? Don't delay my business talks, okay?" Michael's lips trembled, as if he had been hit hard. In my past life, I wished I had said one more sentence to him. He just said not to delay his work. His work was to spend every night with Sophia, raising their children, the whole family living happily. Seeing that I was about to leave, Michael panicked. "Don't go. Can we start over?" This time, I didn't get a chance to speak. My cousin splashed a drink in his face. "Shameless. You dare to flirt with my sister while you have a wife." This time Michael's face turned pale. "I didn't mean to hide the fact that I'm married, Clara. I just want to win you back. Please don't be angry. It was an accident between Sophia and me. She drugged me, and that's why I made a mistake. For so many years, I have been faithful to you." "Wait a minute. Don't use the word faithful like that, okay? What do I have to be angry about?" In the end, Mrs. Baker and her son were still asked to leave by Mr. Jao after the banquet ended. Michael was still waiting. To see me unexpectedly, Sophia rushed in with a big belly, hitting and kicking him. "I'm carrying the Baker family's child, and you still can't forget about another woman. Are you even human?" Pregnant women are naturally easily upset. Michael not only didn't comfort her, but also found her loud shouting annoying. He told her to go back home. The two of them started arguing again. Then Sophia was pushed down by Mrs. Baker. Red liquid trickled down her leg. I looked away and got into the car. Michael left his wife, who needed to go to the hospital, and chased after my car. He kept calling my name. So devoted, huh? My cousin said with disgust. What a jerk, I corrected her. It's not love for me. He's trying to use past feelings to get me to help the Baker family. He's the kind of person who only loves himself. The cooperation talks were quite successful. I would join Mr. Xiao and others in investing to build the biggest new shopping mall in City C. Because of the initial work, I still needed to stay in the country for a while. Andrew went home first. Before leaving, he kept reminding me, in your country, there's an old saying. A good horse doesn't go back to graze on old pastures. Don't get back together with that guy. Also, even a bodyguard is out of the question. His monthly salary can't even buy your watch. His muscles are so big it looks like he can fight. Marco walked over quietly. Boss, I also have a martial arts school with a monthly profit of. I rolled my eyes at the two of them. I'll buy it myself. Right now, I just want to make money. If you stop me from making money, I'll fire all of you. Andrew glared at Marco and boarded the plane angrily. Marco quietly pulled down his sleeves. He seemed to want to hide his muscles. But with his broad shoulders and narrow waist, he could hide his arms but not his strong chest. Childish Michael came to see me a few times later. He was too tired and gave up. After Sophia's miscarriage, her relatives from her hometown came in large numbers. They rushed to City C to demand an explanation from Michael. The Baker family company was already losing money. After being disrupted by Sophia's relatives, it went bankrupt. They even hired a very good lawyer to help Sophia divorce Michael. Sophia got most of the remaining money of the Baker family. Mr. Baker, because of the bankruptcy, hanged himself at the company's old location. Mrs. Baker, on the other hand, was so shocked that she became mentally unstable. Every day, she talked to the air, scolding an imaginary daughter-in-law. If you don't take the medicine, how will you give my family a son? If you don't kneel to the Buddha, how will you give Michael a son? Later, Mrs. Baker went to the street, causing a scene. She was hit by a car and became paralyzed. Michael begged Sophia for some money to treat his mother's illness. Most of Sophia's money went to her relatives, leaving nothing. Also, Sophia still hated the Baker family and wouldn't help even if she had money. The two of them started arguing again. This time Michael blamed Sophia for all his problems. During the fight, a knife was used, directly causing Sophia's death. Michael was quickly arrested, and I very kindly went to the hospital to visit Mrs. Baker. I even paid her medical bills. Everyone praised me for being kind and fair, but they didn't know that I hired the worst caregiver for her. She soon developed bed sores all over her body. Her whole body smelled bad. Standing by her side, I smiled and watched her. Madam, you remember your past life, don't you? When you were making my life miserable, did you ever think that one day you would be in my hands? You clearly knew that Michael had someone else. Yet you still blamed me for not being able to have children, while I was drinking bitter medicine and being forced to kneel. You were enjoying family happiness with Sophia's child. You should feel my pain too. Mrs. Baker stared with wide eyes, waving her hands, yet she couldn't even touch my sleeve. She could only open her mouth, drooling. In her eyes, there was only anger. I wouldn't let her die, and so she lived on in that terrible state. Michael asked to see me before he was executed. I agreed. Looking at me, he cried and confessed. He said that many memories that weren't his own came into his mind. He saw that his coldness towards me in a past life led to my lifetime of loneliness. Can you forgive me? I love you. The reason I didn't face my own feelings was because I wanted to break free from my parents' control. I always listened to them, but when they told me to love you, I acted opposite. How childish. I've lost everything now, he sobbed. I shook my head. He actually laughed. It's fine, hate me if you want. My life is so miserable. Let's just call it my punishment now. It was my turn to laugh. Punishment? How could it be so simple? In the glass window, my somewhat excited eyebrows and eyes were reflected. Do you think your company's downfall was only because of the economy? Do you think it was just luck that Sophia found out about the banquet? Do you think she miscarried so easily? Can those relatives in the village really afford a top-notch legal team? Michael's face gradually turned pale until there was no color left. However, his eyes were bloodshot. Do you hate me this much? Why wouldn't I hate you? In my past life, I never did anything to hurt others. Yet I ended up living a life worse than death. All because the Baker family wanted my money. They ruined my whole life. In this life, I've only made a few small moves. I've already been very kind. Those choices were just the choices of the Baker family themselves. I stood up, and the last words I left for Michael were, "I will bring the news of your execution to your mother." I walked out of the prison and got into the car. The black car drove through the rain. The new business area already had the beginnings of tall buildings. The future that belonged to me was coming.